So I was just planning on recording a video, possibly a couple hours, depending on what I think about this one. Just sort of like general lists. So like future ones might be sports ones, music ones, etc. But this one was films. So I've been watching a fair amount of films lately, and been getting quite into some various speeches that have been in films, and like quotes, etc. And whereas I thought it would be a bit hard to pin down quotes, like particularly just to find them within speech into film, sorry, and like further in terms of like distinguishing them and putting them on a big list, thought it'd be a bit difficult. So what I've gone for is maybe speeches, as the title I'm sure suggests. And so I'll preface it firstly by saying I haven't seen every film, and I know that there are features like in the speeches that I know of that I won't include in my list, like Gladiator, Patton, because I haven't seen the film and haven't watched the speeches due to that. And there are other ones which people, like lesser known films that people will complain that aren't in the list, and the ones that I have seen, which I don't think worthy in my top 20, which other people will think is a incredible travesty, etc. So I have 20. I'm going to just rattle through the top 20 to 11, and then I'll give a bit more justification to 10 and 1, and I'll hopefully include links on them YouTube so you can go off and you can watch the speech and see whether you think that it's a good speech or a bad speech, or like should be higher or lower than other relevant ones. So in 20th place I have 300, in 19th Gladiator, 18th Jaws, 17th Full Metal Jacket, 16th The Rules of Fight Club, 15th Speech on the Waterfront, 14th Kill a Mockingbird, 13th A Few Good Men, 12th Pulp Fiction, and 11th Vendetta, which I will also come back to later. So 10th was a tricky one in terms of like being Scottish and putting that on there. So eventually I have one for Braveheart. And whilst it is a bit frustrating to have like Scottish identity typified by everyone else just by quoting freedom, the whole speech does offer a lot more to that. Firstly, in terms of like the sense of patriotism that was there, and like the sort of feeling with the whole country as it was there, and then also like in terms of freedom and like how that applied to a greater extent. And so I think it is an excellent speech. Talking about how important freedom is and how people are fighting for it, etc. And so that's why I have that one at number 10. Number 9 is that of Dirty Harry. The many Clint Eastwood films that will be clearing on this list. At the point in which there's 2 points in the film in which he's counting how many bullets is left in his gun. And just the way that he's sort of teasing the person on both occasions, the sort of dry humour that he attaches to it, and sort of like element of luck as well that applies in other films. When he's talking about how many shots he's fired, I think it's phenomenally well done. I think it's incredibly well scripted. The fear that he can like, put into the other people, and the sort of like, drama that comes with it, I think is incredibly well done. 8th is another battle one with Braveheart, but rather than fighting English, it's equally tyrannical orcs of Mordor. And Lord of the Rings and Aragorn speech. This one, I think, like particularly in the context of the film, is really much showing how much in like the course of 3 films and 10 hours or whatever it is, like how much sort of fight has gone into it, and that fight's still going to be there, and like the sort of passion and belief that he has that he can sort of like triumph these greater armies, etc. And I think that it is very well done in terms of that, and I think it's incredibly well delivered from Ego Mortensen. 7th, going back earlier, is Pulp Fiction again. So whilst the one in 12th is that Samuel Jackson striking down his vengeance upon thee, this one is Christopher Walken and The Watch. In a beautifully Quentin Tarantino sort of moment, I just think it's an incredibly entertaining story about how the watch has gone there, and like being slightly sort of pointless as well in the context of the film, but it doesn't really mean much. As like lots of Tarantino speeches do, and like the tipping, etc. in Reservoir Dogs. I think it's just an incredibly well done speech that's very, very entertaining, and Christopher Walken's minor involvement in the film just makes this incredibly entertaining and fun speech, and therefore that takes my 7th. Returning again to 11 and 12, and 6th I have V for Vendetta. Whereas the previous one was the introduction speech of V with lots of alliteration techniques and letter V. This one is the address to the masses regarding the sort of tyranny of their leadership. And sort of discussing how it's obvious in terms of how the dictatorship's gotten that sort of situation and how people have acquiesced to it, and then the sort of call to arms. And so, like, where's this other call to arms in the one that I have lower? I think this one higher. Especially, I think, is a bit more relevant to like modern day things. Like it's not so much a battle, but in terms of like the sort of ideas of perception, in terms of like freedom, in terms of that, I think it does a better job of Braveheart than that does in terms of that. And I just think it's so eloquently put and so well delivered. Watching this man address these masses who are sort of like being indoctrined by this person, being sort of forced into a situation in which they're sort of second-class citizens under the thumb of this new leader, and how he is braving the sort of situation, the panic that goes around it, and how this control is slowly falling, and his call to arms, in terms of feeling what he feels, etc., I think is incredibly eloquent, as is most of the speech in the entire film, and I think deserving of that place. Fifth, returning to Clint Eastwood, is Unforgiven, although not delivered by him, delivered by the excellent Gene Hackman. So in terms of this, it's very different to the standard sort of westerns that they get, Dirty Harrys, etc., in which this speech really strips away the sort of western genre as a whole, in which people go in with all guns blazing, everyone's really, really cool, and the gunfights are exceptional and that stuff. And this speech is that of discussing fighting the blue bottle scene. And it is all this western glamour about how the gunslingers and quick draws, etc. It's essentially saying who can hold this nerve, who's least drunk, and like how good are the guns at the time, etc. And so it's stripping away all this glamour that piled onto western, and also by Clint Eastwood as well, ironically. And saying actually this is probably more likely what's happened, not the tales that you'll get from Mr. Beauchamp and the Duck, but instead the sort of idea that you'll get like actual reality, putting this western closer, this sort of anti-western where we don't know who the heroes are, who the villains are, etc. I think this speech does it really, really well in terms of saying like, okay, Corkin might have been the better shot, might have been like the more deserving to live. That didn't come into account. It was purely like what happened in that situation with all the glamour stripped aside. And I think that difference from other westerns makes it so interesting as a speech and deserving of a list. However, I still do have a romantic side for the other westerns, in which the fourth place is Clint Eastwood's final time on the list, Fistful of Dollars. And this is when people have been shooting at his horse. And the prelude to the speech is phenomenal, in that he goes up and asks for 4 coffins to be ready. 3 coffins to be ready, I think. I'll show you if I can find it. So there's 3 coffins to be ready. And then he goes up to them and he discusses this again in his fantastic taunting way, and to these people about how much his meal dislikes being shot at and how he doesn't realise it's a joke. And the dry humour that is lathered onto this speech is incredibly well delivered, incredibly well written, and just so well imagined in terms of how this realizes all his feelings and the sort of position of power that he's in. And it has a sort of glamorous western end, etc., but I'm willing to forget it because of how entertaining it is, and purely so that Maeve can get his element of revenge. In third position is that Good Will Hunting, which was one of these films that made me consider this list, having watched it recently, in which you have this mathematical genius of Matt Damon, and he knows all these things and all these books, and it's Robin Williams telling him particularly important in terms of the context of Robin Williams and the rest of this film, and that he was like not as much of a genius, but still a genius, who sort of gave up that sort of like life of academia to actually live, and talking to Matt Damon about like not all the ideas and books, not all these things, but actually what real life experiences are, what it really means to live your life, and how he's missing out on this, and like how he can still like, go on to it if he gets over it. And this sort of thing, like I'm still interested in seeing Heart the MCs Today stuff from Deaf Poet Society, but I can't imagine that they will do it in a better fashion at this in terms of talking about living life. We talk about going out, actually doing things, and really experiencing these sort of ideas. The way that he does this, and the beautiful way he does it, and the expression on that being in space according to this, in which the first time he's sort of broken into as a character as well, I think is fantastic and well done. Second on this is the Dream speech from a fantastic actor Al Pacino in Any Given Sunday. In terms of like really looking at the team mentality, and like whereas I think the sort of call to arms and battle is done in other speeches, this is definitely in terms of how intimate it is. Not only in terms of like getting on these people to fight for each other who they know so well, and sort of friends with etc. Like hoping that they're going to back them up in these inches in the speech. Also going into the mistakes that he's made and how like it affects his life and the regret, and essentially like if he had another chance, the ability that he would wish to have to fight for those extra inches. And how we like pass this on, etc. is so well done in terms of elements of regret, in terms of hoping for like an experience that you can really remember, bring forward, and take forward to try and conquer that regret. It's phenomenally well done, and incredible. Written speech from Al Pacino, very much inspiring if you have any big sporting events to go to, etc. My top one is a fairly short speech, but it's incredibly well delivered and it's incredibly well done in terms of the context of the speech, and similar to Good Will Hunting, it's about what it requires to be life, and sort of in terms of like what it would be to be human. And that's the speech in Blade Runner, towards the end of the scene by the end of the film, by Rutger Hauer playing a replicant. In terms of like what he has seen in his life, like what it means to him, and how all these like memories exist and the moments exist, and how the temporary but can sort of like last to an extent in terms of like the relationship and life with life, and then particularly relevant in terms of the themes in the film, in terms of like what it is to be human, like whether a robot can be human in terms of the same things, and so like with a corporation's headline of more human than human, and all these sorts of things in terms of what it is to live, what it requires to be that, and like what you can experience when you live, and sort of all these things in terms of the life that he's had and like the effects that this will have, and also in the context of what he's just done, precluding the scene. I won't spoil it to anyone who hasn't seen the film, but the whole speech there is absolutely phenomenal. So please go away and watch some of the speeches if you so desire. Bear in mind that some of them have like an impact in terms of the film, Blade Runner particularly, Fistful of Dollars probably. I think those are probably the main ones in which I actually would have a major impact on. So sort of spoilers and telling you what happens, but no, it's just a quick thing, and I hope that people like these features and get inspired by them, and if there are any ones that I missed or any ones that shouldn't be in the list, then tell me I'm wrong, and please comment on it.